In the early 26th century, humanity was at risk, not from an alien threat, but from within. Insurrection among human colonies, especially the outer colonies, would eventually escalate into full war. By 2510, the most conservative projections predicted war within 20 years and a few billion deaths. On the other end was predicted indeterminable war and innumerable casualties. It was to avoid this dark future that the Office of Naval Intelligence initiated Orion Generation 2, or Spartan II as it would later be called, and invested heavily in the program. However, this would mean funding would have to be pulled from other places, including projects supported or proposed by Colonel James Ackerson. It's almost ironic then that, in the wake of the success of the Spartan II program, Colonel Ackerson would propose his own version, known as Spartan III. Piggybacking off Halsey's work, the Spartan IIIs would recruit from children orphaned by the Covenant War, stoking the fires of their hatred for the Covenant as motivation. They would also broaden the age requirement range from a strict 6 to as young as 4, or as old in rare cases as 11. They also loosened Halsey's strict genetic requirements. Despite these, improvements in medical augmentation science would ensure that, at least on that front, the Spartan IIIs would not suffer any loss in ability. However, one objective of the Spartan III program was to cut costs and produce Spartans faster. The biggest expense of the Spartan II program was Mjolnir, so for the IIIs, a new type of armor was produced, semi-powered infiltration armor, or SPY. The IIIs would also be trained over a shorter period of time and fielded faster, though a tougher training regiment was designed to make up the difference. The primary purpose of Spartan III was to trade lives for time. As such, a majority of Spartan IIIs would be killed during what were basically suicide runs against high-value targets. In spite of this, a number of Spartan IIIs would survive to see the end of the Human Covenant War and beyond, either surviving their company's suicide mission or being pulled out prior, or in the case of several Gamma Company members, never seeing action at all. Welcome back, Canonites. As we previously did with the Spartan IIs, today we'll be covering surviving Spartan IIIs, either confirmed alive or possibly active, as of Halo's current setting around June of 2559. Starting us off are the survivors of Alpha Company, our first Spartan III being none other than June A266. The only survivor of Noble Team, June was an expert marksman. Following his augmentations, which interestingly enough nearly crippled him, June was pulled from Alpha Company and assigned to the Headhunter program. He led a Headhunter team for many years, time likely spent hunting down unruly rebel leaders, before his exemplary skills resulted in a transfer to Noble Team. As a warrant officer on Noble Team and designated Noble 3, June was one of the few to regularly make it back from missions alongside Kat and Carter. In July of 2552, Noble Team was deployed on what would be their last mission, the defense of Reach. June would watch as his fellow Spartans, his family, died one by one as the Covenant invasion spread across the planet. On the morning of August 30th, he was given his final assignment as a member of Noble Team: escort Dr. Catherine Halsey to Castle Base on Reach. At some point, June was separated from the Doctor and later managed to escape the fallen planet. After the end of the Human Covenant War, June became the primary recruiter for the newly formed Spartan IV program, personally recruiting future Spartans Sarah Palmer, Edward Buck, Michael Mickey Crespo, and Kojo Romeo Agu, among others. By 2558, June had officially retired from active duty. Though technically a civilian now, he acted as Chief of Staff for the Spartan IV program, second only to Admiral Musa, the program's lead. When the Created rose up in October of 2558, the primary Spartan training station that June served from was taken over by the local AI, Leonidas. Luckily, Spartans Buck and Romeo showed up as part of their own mission, destroying Leonidas. Following these events, Buck briefly caught June up with current events before leaving the system. Next up is Rosenda A344. Like June and many on this list, Rosenda was pulled from her company prior to what would be its final mission: Operation Prometheus in the case of Alpha Company, and Operation Torpedo in the case of Beta. Rosenda was a reserve Spartan that would be rotated into Noble Team if necessary. Sometime in 2552, Noble Team's leader, Colonel Holland, was considering using Rosenda to replace Emil A239 should counterinsurgency operations have arisen due to Emil's extreme aggression towards insurrectionists. This obviously didn't happen, with Reach falling under attack in July of 2552. We haven't heard of Rosenda's status since she was mentioned in the Noble Team profiles in pre-release material for Halo Reach, so whether she survived the Human Covenant War is currently unknown. However, all it would take is for an author or 343 to take an interest for Rosenda to reappear in the fiction. Our next Spartan is a very recent addition to the fiction, Kevin A282. He appears in the Halo Fractures story, Breaking Strain. Little of his service during the Covenant War is known, but we do know that he saw major action on Colo, Meridian, and Sigma-Octantis IV, and was one of the Spartans outfitted in Mjolnir. In 2552, a mission resulted in Kevin receiving significant damage to his armor, scarring across his face, and several Oni agents being hospitalized. As he was being called back to Earth, his escort, the UNSC Dark Was the Night, was attacked by the Covenant. Kevin managed to save Captain Darren Leone's life during the attack. The ship ultimately crash-landed on an outer colony called Losing Hand, where it would remain for almost a year. During that time, Kevin largely kept away from the survivors and locals, believing his presence would only create more problems, though there may have been deeper reasons. Still, during that period, Kevin would often be seen standing sentinel from nearby headlands. When a Covenant ship appeared near and headed towards Losing Hand, Kevin emerged from his isolation when the locals tried to take the UNSC ship, once again saving Captain Leone. The Covenant ship, an SDV corvette named the Lookout, landed, revealing it to be crewed by humans and Sangheili and on a mission to recover survivors of the recently ended war. Kevin would return to active duty following this rescue, though we haven't heard of him since. Hazel A302 is another recent addition to the fiction, having been revealed as part of Halo Outpost Discovery. Hazel was a talented young girl, her innate physical abilities only enhanced by Project Chrysanthemum, the codename for the Spartan III augmentations. Combined with her scholarly mind, she was quickly marked for Oni's Headhunter program. During this time, she would deploy against high-value Covenant targets and use to destroy sensitive UNSC information. Following the war, she and Spartan Owen B-096 were assigned to Outpost Discovery, a UNSC project meant to educate civilians and act as a mobile recruiting tool. By this time, she would be equipped with Mark 5B Mjolnir. This was around 2553 or so, however, so Hazel's current status is unknown, at least for now. That wraps up Survivors of Alpha Company, so let's move on to Beta. Starting us off are a pair of Spartans, the only survivors of the Spartan IIIs to take part in Operation Torpedo, Tom B-292 and Lucy B-091. Both were part of Fireteam Foxtrot during Torpedo and the only two to survive. As they lay on the battlefield after aiding in the destruction of a Covenant refinery, Lucy asked, "How are you sure we're alive?" They would be her last words for years, Lucy eventually being diagnosed with post-traumatic vocal disarticulation. Both would remain on Onyx as trainers for Spartan III Gamma Company and were present when the planet's Forerunner systems came online in October of 2552, having been put on standby following the destruction of Alpha Halo a month prior. Lucy and Tom, along with Kurt 051, Senior Chief Petty Officer Franklin Mendez, Fred 104, Kelly 087, Linda 058, Dr. Catherine Halsey, and a handful of Gamma Company Spartans would find themselves trapped in a shield world, the entrance to which was located in Onyx's core. They would remain trapped there until being rescued in February of 2553. During this time, Lucy befriended a local Huragok, or engineer, which helped her find her voice again. Tom and Lucy would remain attached to Blue Team for a few months after being rescued. In July of 2553, they were deployed to the planet Gao along with Blue Team and 3 Gamma Spartans to investigate possible Forerunner artifacts on the planet. They took place in a large battle that broke out as a result of various groups vying for these artifacts. Following this, they would formally join the newly established Spartan military branch, instructing new Spartan 4s, being outfitted with Mjolnir Gen 2, and serving alongside Chief June. In March of 2554, a Spartan 4 trainee went rogue and, when caught, blew a grenade in the Spartan training station. June was blown out into space, but thanks to Tom and Lucy's efforts, saved before he succumbed to the vacuum. Afterwards, they were both reassigned to the Onyx Shield World, the very place they had once been trapped, to serve under their former trainer Franklin Mendez. When the created uprising came on October 27, 2558, Lucy and Tom were caught up in a conflict as a guardian within Onyx awoke, while also fighting off an invasion of Sangheili from the servants of the Abiding Truth. Ultimately, the Guardian was disabled in part due to the Shield World being moved back into slipspace, and the servants fought off temporarily. However, the Shield World would need to remain in slipspace lest the Guardian reactivate. For now, Tom, Lucy, and everyone else who inhabited the Shield World are stuck there. Next up is Owen B-096. Like others, Owen was pulled from his company prior to Operation Torpedo and outfitted in Mjolnir. He was present during the opening skirmishes on Meridian in 2558, eventually helping a group of teenagers evacuate the town of Broom-sur-Mer. He would continue to participate in Meridian's defense after that, presumably up until its fall in 2551. During the invasion of Sol in October and November of 2552, Owen participated in several Scorched Earth operations, denying assets and intel to the Covenant. Following the war's end, Owen was assigned to Outpost Discovery alongside Spartan Hazel A302. And that's it for Beta Company, an oddly short list compared to the number of Alphas that survived, at least for now. Technically, there's also the possibility of a Spartan B170, who was mentioned in a communique between Kurt 051 and Franklin Mendez, the same one that mentioned Cat B320 and Spartan B312 or Noble 6. However, this communique represents the only mention of B170, so speculating on his or her survival is kind of pointless. Moving on, we arrive at Gamma Company, the final group of Spartan 3s and the one with the greatest number of survivors. Gamma Company Spartans are unique even among their fellow 3s, having been given a number of additional illegal augmentations that would enhance aggression, strength, endurance, and pain tolerance. In essence, this meant Gammas could fight longer and harder, especially under extreme duress, though they would slowly lose their mental faculties over time. To counter this, Gammas regularly had to take a drug colloquially known as a smoother. First up are the survivors of Fireteam Sabre, Ash G099, Olivia G291, and Mark G313. Sabre was among 3 Spartan 3 teams on Onyx when the planet's Forerunner systems activated in October of 2552, competing for top honors with teams Katana and Gladius. During this conflict, 2 of Sabre's members, Dante G188 and Holly G003, were killed. Team Katana was captured and put in a form of stasis, and Gladius was killed as well. Sabre would find itself trapped in the Onyx Shield world for several months before being rescued and temporarily served with Blue Team. Following a conflict on Gao, it was decided that Sabre's members would be declared KIA in order to cover up knowledge of their illegal augmentations. Sabre were then reassigned to a covert investigations unit led by Veda Lopez, a former Gao Ministry of Protection investigator that the Spartans had grown attached to during their time on Gao. Veda having helped the Spartans out during the recent conflict, so being assigned to lead Sabre as a ferret team worked out for her. In the months to follow, Veda and her ferrets trained for their new jobs. In December of 2553, they were brought in to aid in the investigation of Admiral Gracelyn Tuwa's murder. Next up is the previously mentioned Team Katana. Made up of 5 currently unnamed Spartan 3s, Katana was present for the Onyx conflict, where they were captured and put in a type of stasis by Sentinels. The stasis used an unknown method utilizing slip space. Following their rescue from the Shield world, Katana were freed of their captivity. Along with over 300 surviving Gamma Spartans, Katana were initially going to be integrated into the new Spartan branch. However, by July of 2553, the fact that Gammas had to rely on the aforementioned smoothers worried the upper echelons of Oni. Instead, the surviving Gammas would be used for more covert missions, though some would also be moved to non-combat roles. By January of 2558, one Gamma Spartan, G059, was deployed on an assassination mission against then-leader of the Servants of the Abiding Truth, Avumed Telkim. At the time, she was still wearing spy armor, which seems to indicate that the Gammas weren't allowed to upgrade to Mjolnir, perhaps a decision tied to worries about them going berserk, though this also could have just been a choice by Spartan G059. And that covers all surviving Spartan 3s, at least for now. Plenty of room for more to come out of the woodwork. What are your thoughts on the Spartan 3s in general, and what would you like to see 343 do with them going forward? Let me know in the comments below. Next time will be the March monthly recap, but soon after will be a fairly interesting topic in terms of canon, the existence of a second class of Spartan 2s. Stay tuned, and until then, this has been Halo Canon. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing, and if you really love me, hit that notification bell and leave a thumbs up. These both really help out the channel. I wouldn't be where I am now without your views and support, so once again, thank you. Keep on being awesome, Canonites.